G'day and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to show you two exercises that you can do if you have knees that hyperextend. And regardless of whether your knees hyperextend because you have hypermobile joints, or you've had some structural injury in the past that's maybe made your ligaments that little bit looser than they could be, these two exercises will hopefully optimize that environment as much as possible to decrease the potential for your knees wanting to hyperextend. If you are someone that has hypermobile joints and your knee does go further into extension than the next person, we shouldn't automatically see that as a bad position if it is a natural part of your range. What we do need to focus on is making sure that you have full control of that range in all different scenarios, when you're standing and walking or running and jumping and twisting, just to make sure that we protect the function and the integrity of the joints over time. It's a different story if you have abnormal knee hyperextension because you've had an injury or some trauma to that knee joint, but the point still remains the same. We want to make sure that you have control of that joint as much as possible to again ward off any future potential for wear and tear and dysfunction over time. So if we're looking for exercises that you can try to optimize the function of your knee, particularly if it does hyperextend, we want to give you a mixture of exercises that hopefully decrease the likelihood that your knee is going to want to hyperextend, but then also protecting your knee against that hyperextension if that's where your knee naturally wants to go. So the first of these two exercises may not necessarily be the most intuitively obvious exercise. The second one potentially will be more obvious. But the first exercise that we want to go through is we want to make sure that the muscles at the front of your thigh, those quadriceps muscles, are as loose and as mobile as possible. Now that may sound strange that if we're trying to protect your knee from going into a range that it shouldn't, that we want to give that leg more range to work with. But one of the things that we see clinically is that if your quadriceps are tighter than they should be, the role of your quadricep muscles is to extend your knee. And if those muscles are tight, then you're more likely going to be held or drawn into an extended position as opposed to a more flexed position. And especially when you're at the end ranges of your knee extension, if those muscles at the front of your thigh are tighter, there's more potential for that to want to dump into a further extended position because that's what muscular tightness through the front of your thigh will prompt your knee to do. So one of the simplest and easiest exercises to reduce quadricep muscle tightness is essentially just a standing quadricep muscle stretch. Now obviously, depending on how mobile and flexible you are, depending on how your knee feels, if you've had some trauma that's causing that hyperextension or not, we may need to play around with which version of this feels the best for you. But ultimately, if you can hold on to something and literally just bend your knee, grab your ankle, pull that heel towards your bottom as far as you feel comfortable. We don't want your knee to feel like it's poking forwards. We want to make sure that your thigh is relatively vertical, if not having your knee a little bit past that vertical line. So we're into some version of extension into your hip. At the end of the day, all we're looking for is to find a comfortable version of tightness somewhere down the front of your thigh. It's not enough to just hold this stretch and hope for the best. What we want to do instead, as we always say on this channel, is we want you to find where your best version of that tightness is and then activate and tense that tightness for 5 to 10 seconds. It may mean pushing your foot back into your hand to flare those muscles up to make them work, which creates a reflex in your brain that allows those soft tissues to give immediately to some degree. And then what should happen straight away is that once you've tensed it and then relaxed it for 5 to 10 seconds, you should then find that you can go further into the stretch than you could before. We want to keep repeating that process until you've had enough or you've stopped making change. And then what you should hopefully feel is your ability to hyperextend your knee may still be there if you have that range naturally available to you. But a quadricep stretch takes away one of those added reasons that you maybe don't need to have. It might make it more likely that your knee will be forced into a more hyperextended position than you ultimately want it to. The recent video we did on the couch stretch is potentially another excellent version of this stretch. But ultimately, the more slack we can feed into the knee, the less likely your knee is going to be forced into that hyperextended position inadvertently or in moments where you don't necessarily want them to. And so the second and probably more intuitively obvious exercise that we want to do is we want to improve the strength of your quadriceps muscles in that end range to improve how well your body controls that end range. And a really simple way to do this is if you can have a band of some sort. This is a power band. You can use a TheraBand, a resistance band. It doesn't matter what you want. You want to tie it to something relatively stable. And then what we want to do here is we want to place the band around the back of your knee and take a decent step back. You want to focus on fully extending your knee as far as you feel comfortable. Trying to squeeze your bottom, squeezing your thigh muscles to make these muscles control that leg movement as much as you can. We don't want to do sort of fast movements at this stage. We're going to start with relatively slow controlled movements, really trying to squeeze in that end range position, nice and slow and controlled. It's okay if your muscles feel a little bit shaky when you do this, but we want to start doing sets of 10, sets of 15 at a resistance that you feel is enough to fatigue your quads, especially as they attach down into the top of your knee. It's nothing fancy. As I said, intuitively, this tends to make a little bit more sense than the previous exercise. Over the course of a couple of weeks, you should feel that your ability to control that end range flicking or that terminal knee extension, that hyperextended position, becomes that little bit better and a little bit more thorough than it was before. And then once you feel like that becomes relatively easy for you, we then want to add a little bit more power and speed to that movement as well, where you're sort of really starting to flick that back a little bit faster to make sure that if you are an athlete or someone who jumps and twists and lands quite a bit, so that you better practice the strength and control those muscles need to safely tolerate the movements and the activities that have more force going through them. The other nuance to this exercise is we can actually do the same thing in reverse so that your hamstring and your calf muscles at the back of the leg are better at eccentrically controlling that hyperextension range of motion, as well as that concentric or shortening motion at the front through your quads. So again, how that looks is relatively simple. I'll use my other leg just to make it easier to see here. But again, you'll place the band just above that knee, taking the tension out as much as you feel comfortable. And again, making sure that you very slowly hyperextend that knee from this direction so that your hamstrings and your calf muscles at the back of the knee, which are lengthening under tension here, are still doing some of the work. And again, if you're just doing 10 or 15 reps in this position, you should hopefully feel like there is a little bit of hamstring and calf fatigue towards the end of those sets and reps. So if we can couple better mobility through the quadriceps muscles and then just work on your general strength and control of the muscles around your knee that might need to be more stable and stronger when your knee does want to hyperextend, it will leave you better equipped to decrease the potential for that knee to dump into a hyperextended position. But if it is going to go into that hyperextended position, then having the strength and the control to handle that safely and respectfully can again decrease the chances that anything untoward will happen in that moment, or if those moments persist long term. So as always, I genuinely hope that was helpful. If it was, please let me know by leaving a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content and you find it interesting. But as always, I genuinely hope that that was helpful and insightful in some way, and I hope to see you next time.